Welcome to the Diary War Global channel. Today, we bring you an in-depth analysis of one of the fiercest phases of the Ukraine-Russia war in July 2025, with critical developments on the Eastern Front, particularly around the embattled city of Pokrovsk and an intense wave of aerial attacks on the capital Kyiv. The conflict has reached a new peak of escalation, based on real-time battlefield data, military analysis, and verified reports from sources such as Kyiv Post, Deep State Map, and Ukrainian Armed Forces Communications. This report offers a comprehensive and detailed perspective on what is truly happening on the front lines. The city of Pokrovsk, located in Donetsk Oblast, has long served as a vital administrative and logistical hub near the hottest zones of combat in eastern Ukraine. Since late June, it has become the epicenter of brutal urban warfare, where elite units from both sides, the Ukrainian armed forces and the Russian military, have clashed in relentless engagements. According to Kyiv Post reports dated July 22, 2025, the first Russian infantry units officially entered the outskirts of Pokrovsk from the east-southeast, specifically through the village of Zaz. Analysts describe this penetration as a tactical gap in Ukraine's defense system, caused by exhausted manpower, battlefield miscommunication, and a depleted infantry brigade deployed in the sector. Once the infiltration was detected by Ukraine's electronic reconnaissance units, the General Staff responded immediately. Reinforcements were dispatched from the 155th Separate Mechanized Brigade and the 68th Jager Brigade. What followed was a series of intense close-quarters battles, with combat erupting building by building, street by street. Ukrainian sources confirmed that several Russian sabotage and reconnaissance teams were neutralized. However, the counter-offensive came at a steep cost. Ukrainian losses were reported as significant, especially among frontline infantry squads. Russia's manpower superiority, over 100,000 troops pushed into the Pokrovsk axis. This localized advance was not an isolated maneuver. Throughout July, the Russian armed forces have been reinforcing their positions in the broader Donetsk region with overwhelming numbers. According to Deep State Map analysts and field reports, more than 100,000 Russian troops have been deployed along the Eastern Front. This scale of deployment allows Moscow to rotate its frontline units every 7 to 10 days, a tactic that keeps old soldiers rested and refreshed before returning to battle. Such tactical rotations provide Russia with a constant influx of fresh troops at contact points. Ukraine, by contrast, has been forced to rely on stretched logistics and longer rotation intervals, which has created a growing fatigue gap. As noted by retired Major Alexei Hetman of the Ukrainian Armed Forces, this differential rotation cycle is giving Russian troops a gradual but tangible advantage in prolonged engagements. Expanding Russian gains beyond Pokrovsk, Grashkov, and the outer flanks. Following the partial penetration of Pokrovsk, Russian forces pushed their offensive further by seizing the nearby village of Grashkov, a key location along the administrative boundary between Donetsk and Donetsk Oblast. Securing Grashkov grants Russia a new logistics corridor, enabling rear area supplies to flow more efficiently into the Pokrovsk axis and positioning Russian units for future operations deeper into central Ukraine. Meanwhile, several secondary thrusts were launched around Pokrovsk aimed at broadening the offensive envelope. Voskresenka and Orlov to the southwest, in the Novopavlivka direction, Mak and Ute to the north, directly threatening Pokrovsky's defensive perimeter. Additional active combat zones include Novodonek, Shevchenkov, Poltavok, Valnpol, Andrievka, and Pivnevan, which are now marked by intense artillery duels and infantry advances. Military observers believe the Russian goal is clear: to isolate Pokrovsk and cut off Ukrainian supply lines, an operational model reminiscent of the siege of Bakhmut in 2023. Ukrainian defenders are still holding the major supply routes, particularly the critical Pokrovsk-Kharkov-Dnipro highway. But the situation remains fragile. Massive aerial assault on Kyiv, the largest drone strike of 2025, while the ground war intensifies in Donetsk. The Ukrainian capital Kyiv came under one of the most devastating air assaults of the year. In the early hours of July 22, the skies above Kyiv lit up as waves of drones and missiles rained down for 6 continuous hours. From midnight to 6 a.m., Russia launched a staggering 426 She-type kamikaze drones, along with 24 missiles of mixed class and trajectory. Ukraine's Air Force reported 200 drones successfully shot down, and another 203 jammed or diverted via electronic warfare, while no missile impacts were recorded within city limits. Falling debris from intercepted objects caused significant damage. Key impacts were reported in the following districts. Donetsk district suffered the most destruction, with fires breaking out at a supermarket, kindergarten, and warehouse facilities. Lybitska metro station was directly struck by a drone at its entrance, while dozens of civilians were sheltering inside. Social media footage showed smoke-choked platforms and terrified passengers. Additional districts, including Svia, Holosivsky, Dniprovsky, and Solomyansky, also reported damage primarily from debris. The attack left 1 civilian dead and 7 others injured, including a child with multiple trauma injuries. This was Kyiv's most intense attack since January and marks a renewed Russian focus on civilian psychological disruption. Strategic analysis. A multi-front pressure campaign. Russia's current strategy appears to be focused on splitting Ukrainian attention and resources. In the east, a ground breakthrough is being pursued around Pokrovsk to push into Donetsk Oblast, effectively opening the path to central Ukraine. In Kyiv, drone and missile barrages are designed to strain Ukrainian air defense systems and spread panic among the civilian population, potentially drawing defensive resources away from the eastern front. Despite the intensity, Ukraine's defensive grid has proven resilient. Most drones and missiles were intercepted, and the front line around Pokrovsk, while breached in some sectors, has not collapsed. Military experts predict a prolonged battle throughout August, with both sides expected to pour in reserves and escalate kinetic actions. Western military aid scheduled for delivery in Q3 may allow Ukraine to re-establish initiative by autumn. Possible scenarios and outlooks. Will Pokrovsk become the next Bakhmut? If Russia manages to fully capture Pokrovsk, it will gain a strategic corridor to the Dnipro River basin. However, Ukrainian forces are still contesting the city and maintain control over significant districts. High casualties on both sides. The intensity of engagements is reportedly among the highest of the year, with tens of thousands of artillery shells exchanged daily and drone warfare escalating to unprecedented levels. Information warfare remains active. Russian announcements of victory in certain villages like Kamyansky and guerrilla have not been confirmed by Ukraine, suggesting Moscow is amplifying its psychological and a summary of the battlefield situation and potential scenarios. Will Pokrovsk become the next Bakhmut? A question now heating up military briefings in Kyiv and dominating Western analytical circles. Could Pokrovsk turn into a repeat of the bloody Bakhmut scenario? From a geographical and strategic standpoint, Pokrovsk is a gateway city leading directly into central Ukraine. It lies at the intersection of critical logistics corridors, railway lines, and transportation routes connecting the Donbas region to Dnipro and Zaporizhzhia. Should Pokrovsk fall completely, it wouldn't just be a symbolic victory for Russia, it would also open the door to deeper military operations across Ukrainian territory. However, unlike the situation in Bakhmut back in 2023 when Ukraine was overwhelmed after prolonged resistance, Kyiv is now far more prepared. The lessons learned from previous battles have translated into a more robust, multi-layered defense. Pokrovsk has been fortified with trench networks, reinforced urban a dense mesh of reconnaissance drones, and rapid response artillery units. Ukrainian forces are not alone here either. Elite brigades have been rotated in from Zaporizhzhia and Kharkov, combining with battle-hardened local defenders experienced in urban warfare. While some of the outer districts of the city have fallen into Russian hands, the core of Pokrovsk, particularly administrative areas, logistics hubs, and rooftop fire control points remain under Ukrainian control. Every apartment block, every street corner is turning into a new defensive bastion. If the battle continues on its current trajectory, Pokrovsk could become a months-long war of attrition, inflicting heavy casualties on both sides. Mounting losses on both sides. Unofficial reports from both Ukrainian and independent sources indicate that casualties around Pokrovsk are rising at an alarming rate. In just the past 3 weeks, it is estimated that thousands of artillery rounds are being exchanged daily, with 152mm cannons, HIMARS systems, and MSTA self-propelled howitzers all operating on a near-continuous basis from both sides. Unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, ranging from small reconnaissance drones to large combat-capable ones, are active almost constantly. They serve in a wide array of roles, coordinating artillery strikes, locating infantry units, and carrying out precision explosive attacks. Especially dangerous are low-flying kamikaze drones, which are often only detected moments before impact. Nighttime raids, anywhere from platoon size to full company-level assaults, have become near-nightly events, carried out by special operations units from both armies. These raids often target abandoned industrial zones and northeastern suburbs of Pokrovsk. The resulting close-quarters battles in darkness tend to leave behind bloody consequences, with high levels of casualties. In many cases, it is nearly impossible to evacuate the wounded immediately due to the constant threat of incoming artillery fire. The growing backlog of wounded awaiting evacuation, exhaustion among frontline units due to limited rotation, and soaring psychological strain are now urgent problems on both sides of the front. In such conditions, battlefield leadership, experience, and layered defense tactics are the only factors standing between survival and collapse. Thank you all for tuning in to today's update. If you found this helpful, don't forget to hit that subscribe button and give the video a like. It really motivates me to keep bringing you the latest frontline news.